Albania, in conjunction with Alderney Arts and Farces, presents Murder on the Alderney Express. All aboard! Part 1. Murder by Death. The overnight express from St. Anne to Monet was just leaving Bray Holt when Inspector Poirot entered the carriage. He bade good evening to the assembled passengers and took his seat, opening his newspaper in such a way as to indicate that conversation would not be encouraged. Lady Essex turned to her husband, Lord Albert, and in a low voice gave her opinion of the Belgian gentleman. Lord Albert adjusted his spectacles and urged his wife to keep her voice down. Dr. Proctor polished his stethoscope, and the young man dressed as one of the village people read a work of fiction. At this point, the inspector lowered his newspaper and addressed his fellow passengers. He tugged the ends of his immaculate moustache and announced, "I am Inspector Poirot, and I have come to find a man who disappeared under mysterious circumstances several weeks ago. You may have heard of him, Andrew Mutter." Extended his hand to the detective. "Monsieur Poirot," he said in a seamless French accent, "I too have come to the island to find someone. Allow me to introduce myself. Raz Causeway, at your service, sir." "I deduce you are an American, monsieur," opined the brilliant sleuth. "That's remarkable," said Causeway, removing his Stetson and slapping it against his leather chaps. "How did you guess?" Poirot simply smiled. It was never wise to reveal the tricks of one's trade. The American began to expand on his tale. "I come from here originally, but my dear old mama took me to the New World with a consignment of Alderney cows. Unfortunately, when we arrived there, she fell into the wrong hands and got milked. Every penny she had saved was taken. But before she went to the knacker's yard, she told me I had grandparents in Alderney, and they would take good care of me should I return. Lord Albert and Lady Essex are their names, and I can't wait to meet them." At that very moment, the train entered the Newtown Tunnel, and a sudden shout rang out in the darkness. In the ensuing confusion, nobody knew who was who, and things got a little bit mixed up. Seeing the body of the young man, who had just revealed himself as her lost grandson, Lady Essex swooned. Lord Albert caught her before she could hit the ground. The doctor checked for a pulse and shook his head. The young man was dead. Poirot picked up a pistol, which had fallen to the floor, one of Raz Causeway's 6 shooters. He sniffed it, smelling horse dung. A Colt. Poirot turned to the others, pointing the pistol at them like an accusatory finger. "Killed by his own pistol under cover of darkness," he remarked, "and one of you is the killer." The doctor stepped forward to confront the detective. "How dare you, sir?" he ejaculated. Poirot did not react. "I dare, because we are in a carriage on a speeding train, isolated in our private little bubble. If I smell a fart, I know it is one of you. And if a man is murdered, I also know it is one of you." At that moment, the train entered Bluestone Tunnel. The carriage was plunged into darkness, which was suddenly pierced by a dreadful scream. When they emerged, a scene of cabbage was revealed. Actually, that should say carnage. Another body had joined that of the dead American. Lady Essex swooned, and once again her husband caught her before she could injure herself. Poirot's examination revealed that Dr. Proctor had been stabbed with a paper knife which bore the crest of Lord Albert. "You, sir, are the murderer," the great sleuth declared, covering him with the pistol. "And you, sir, are a fool," said his lordship. "Why would I murder my own grandson?" Poirot considered for a moment, tugging on his moustache. "Perhaps his unexpected arrival is an inconvenience," he speculated. "I do not know enough at the moment to make anything stick." The train whistle blew as they approached the tunnel at Monet. Lady Essex moved to her husband's side. As once again the darkness engulfed them, 2 more shots rang out. I said 2 shots. As the train emerged from the tunnel, Poirot saw, to his horror, that both Lord Albert and Lady Essex had joined the company of the dead. There was nobody else alive in the carriage, which must mean that he was the murderer. But that was impossible. His musings were interrupted by the voice of the young American. "Drop the gun and raise your hands," he said. "But how is this possible?" said Poirot, doing as he was ordered. "The doctor declared you dead." "That's because he was in on it with me. We were going to split the inheritance after I dispatched my grandparents, but then I figured, why bother? So I stabbed him with a paper knife my mother gave me as a keepsake. With him out of the way, there were no witnesses left, and I finished them off with my spare Colt." "No witnesses save me," said Poirot. The American shook his head. "Before we stop at Monet, I will leave the train by jumping onto the track. There will be 4 dead bodies in this carriage when it arrives, and yours will have the murder weapon in its hand." Poirot understood immediately. He would be blamed for the deaths of the others and for his own subsequent suicide. "Before you kill me, grant me one small favor," said the detective. "Name it," said the killer, "but I ain't promising nothing." "Allow me a final cigarette by the window there." Poirot gingerly reached into his breast pocket and produced a packet of cigarettes. "Why not?" said the American. "I might even join you." Poirot stood and crossed to the window, offering the cigarettes to Raz Causeway, who took one. As they smoked, the detective observed, "This train at full speed travels at 75 miles per hour. "Is that so?" said Causeway, his gun hand unwavering. Poirot continued, "An emergency stop would bring us to a complete halt in about 500 yards. Causeway frowned. "An emergency stop?" he said. In your country, I don't believe it is common practice to have a communication cord in the train's carriages," said Poirot. The American looked confused. "A communication cord?" Poirot smiled and raised his hand to the cord above the window. "Yes," he said, "like this one here." He pulled it down. At the very moment the Alderney Express entered the lighthouse tunnel. The American had promised there would be 4 dead bodies in the carriage when it came to a halt at Monet. And he was right. But Monsieur Poirot was not one of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our show for this evening.